Hey everyone, it's Mike Curtis with Traders Edge Network. I'm here with Preston James, options trading veteran of 30 plus years, and welcome to our FogCutter Live, where we're going to help you slice through all the noise and chaos out there when it comes to trading in the financial markets. So Preston, good morning. Welcome. We got a new fresh week here.
Good morning to you.
And tons to talk about.
Lots happening, man.
Let's kick things off, kind of our Monday morning check-in. Obviously, tons of news that hit yesterday, this morning. So maybe you could just start there. What are you seeing? What are you hearing from the tariff front? That's been the hot topic lately.
It's a topic every day. For some reason, well, not for some reason, we have huge news today that's happening all at once. I mean, the market, these big institutions that trade, they can only buy or sell so much every day. So we might have some impact that goes more than one day. It's just a lot to digest. And it didn't happen after the close on Friday. It happened today. It's all happening today. It's some of the biggest news, maybe one of the bigger news days I can certainly remember. And to the upside in years.
Right.
I mean, period, point blank.
Yeah, I mean, this tariff battle back and forth with China, that's kind of been the lingering just dark cloud over some of the markets. Even though we've been rallying these last couple of weeks, that's still been the big question mark. So we get the news this morning that, the US, China have been negotiating the last 2 days, and they've come to, they're doing a little 90-day pause. They're settling in, getting closer to having this trade deal done. So a lot of these stocks that were impacted by the China-US tariff battle are just feeling like this gasp of fresh air, right? And we're seeing a lot of that explosive upside as we start the trading weeks.
Totally. And what I like to focus on here, Mike, and I know you do too, is how the sectors break down. And one thing I noticed a week or two ago, a couple of weeks ago, is positive tariff news on the chip companies.
Right.
And they were feeling the recent correction probably more than any sector. And so they've been coming up and out. And I look at a company like Applied Material, for example, who announces earnings this week. And they were left for dead. One of the most quality balance sheet. If you just check off all of the fundamentals, they've been around for decades, increase their dividend every year. I mean, they're solid player. But with all the uncertainty, I mean, they kind of came to some multi-year lows. And honestly, you don't see where it's at, whether it's been trading lately for years. It's just kind of it's a present with not only a bow on it, but just a shiny bow and garland coming down. I mean, it's like it's the present you've been waiting for. Hopefully something good inside. But look at it react today. Obviously, all the chips are reacting positive today in addition to what they've done. But Applied Material slid so far down. And so I bring it up because, again, it announces earnings this week on Thursday, I believe. Man, that's something. I don't want to trade it right before earnings, but if we can get the earnings out of the way, there's some multiple strategies we can pull off on an AMAT. AMAT is the ticker symbol there.
Yeah, for sure.
And I'll just mention one other is Alibaba, the premier Chinese internet commerce name, announces earnings this week as well. I mean, talk about US-China tariff, all this stuff. Wow.
Yeah, those are definitely a few things to watch. And just, to wrap up the tariff discussion, then we can jump into a few other things. But, I just looking at these notes, some of the news that was released, US had kind of bumped up the tariffs. They were around 145%, and they're slashed down to 30% now, right? And then China, they were upping the tariffs to 125%. They're now down.
It was a war until today. Yeah.
So these US imports are dropping from 125% down to 10. So, you kind of thought that was what was going on behind the scenes, kind of the pounding the chest. Hey, we're going to up these tariffs to some unreasonable, crazy number. And then it was going to come back down to just something a little more reasonable. So again, now that we're getting just more of that solidified news of that's what these agreements are going to start looking like, the market's just loving it. So yeah, that leads us into.
Can I add one thing to that? This is the classic negotiation, right? You start high, Someone starts low, you're high or low. This just looks absurd when you start. And I can't help but think in our world today, especially as politically charged as it is, you start at that one edge and it's just every kind of comment you can imagine. And where's the world going? I can't believe it. And the whole time, it's a ploy, really, right? To get to some place where you want to be at the end of the day. I don't know. I just had this weird thought over the weekend. Like, it was kind of a low, not the thought I think about all the time, but I just thought, what if the Vietnam War had social media and just a battle that went bad and everyone tweeting and texting about their loved one? I mean, you would think the world was coming to an end. It was horrible, but I don't know. This is nothing compared to that war, obviously, but you can, my point is, we don't have the financial media or anything playing on the TV other than the Masters and stuff when that's on and it's a Friday and we're taking a breather and we have the barbecue out. But we're not binging around on every single thing. We kind of try to keep a quiet office. And I think it's really important just to bring that up. So it's because it's so easy to get sucked in and it's so easy to get whatever you think validated.
Totally.
And I think that's a danger there. One of the most dangerous words, I think, in investing, it's an 8-letter word, and it's the word research, because it portends that you already have something in mind and you're doing your research to go get it confirmed. Yeah. And how dangerous is that?
No, and to that point, I was sitting about a week and a half ago, close to 2 weeks ago, about to play some golf, and we got delayed a little bit with some rains. You know, we were sitting in the clubhouse getting a little snack, and
that's my favorite part of golf these days. It's all.
But I'm with a good buddy of mine, and then his dad and his uncle, and you know, they're in their about their 70s, you know, and late 60s, and one was a very successful attorney. Another one, just a really frugal investor. He was in education. He was a principal of a high school here. So, I mean, pretty smart guys. And
Right.
all they could talk about was, oh, there's going to be empty shelves in the summer and this trade war, it's going to just disrupt. Because I think they're getting fed, just to your point, Preston, they're getting fed kind of what, you know, they're kind of these Trump haters, and they almost felt like they were cheering for the market and the economy to struggle. And I actually took a screenshot, you know, of where the market was at on that day of their prediction. And I can't wait in a couple of months to just be like, hey, remember when they were predicting the end of the world?
Right. Or people wanting to leave, like some of the stars were doing. I had people in my circle, well, one in particular, that said, hey, I'm looking at leaving.
Right.
I mean, wow.
So it's a great point to separate kind of what you're hearing in the endless news cycle to what's really going on. And you talk about it a lot, Preston. The stock market isn't the economy. It's more forward looking.
Yes.
It's looking past some of those things. So,
and Mike, that's what we want to do with this, the FogCutter, right? We want to shine through
that noise.
The noise.
Absolutely.
And the storms, and maybe they're not storms, you know, but if you think they are and want to do your research, you can go find what you want. But
absolutely,
we want to call it like we do, and we're going to do it from a land office that doesn't have any freaking media on. That's where it's coming from.
Absolutely. So a few other things on tap for this week. Preston, you mentioned a couple earnings, companies that are reporting earnings you're watching, right? We're kind of coming over the peak of earnings season. There's still going to be, so keep your eye on the earnings calendar. That's important. But tomorrow we've got our consumer price index, CPI. That's a gauge for inflation. Of course, that's one that's been in the news. It's been watched really closely the last year and a half. Thursday, we've got retail sales and the producer price index, another kind of inflation gauge. And of course, retail sales is a good indication of how the economy is doing, right? Consumer spending is a huge driver of the economy. So tomorrow, Tuesday, we've got some news. Thursday, we've got some news. Also on Thursday, Federal Reserve Chair Jerome Powell is speaking. He's going to discuss just monetary policy, things like that. So we do have a few economic announcements, things coming up this week to keep an eye on. So anything else there, P, that you'd have?
That's a packed week. And I would just add that, a recent event in Tempe was a busy week. In the day before it started, we got our little follow through day. And basically, that's a day that helps give you a nod that basically the worst of a correction or a bear market is over.
Right.
So I'll just say that, and if you wanted to find that we're still in a crappy market, whatever, again, you're going to go find what you want. But the fact of the matter is the correction is over, and it's been over for several weeks.
Totally.
What the point to add to that is that bad news in earnings in a market that's recovering is not as bad. Man, you want to have your stock really implode, announce weak or bad earnings already in a market correction. Because good news doesn't really get rewarded in a correction. If you have bad, it's just crazy. But we've shifted now, and I just wanted to paint that picture just in general that if a company has, anyway, if they have better than expected earnings, increased guidance now, it's going to be even that much more rewarded. Even cloudy news is not going to be as punished. And it's because the climate for stocks has turned favorable. It's cool to be looking for stocks again. A month ago, your friends would have thought you were the village idiot for saying, I'm going to buy some Microsoft. But now it's cool.
Absolutely. So let's talk through that maybe a little bit. We could throw a chart of the S&P 500 up. So that follow through day was on April 22nd. If you're not familiar with that follow through day, Investors Business Daily, Bill O'Neill, the founder, they've done this research. There's some criteria that lines up. These follow through days end corrections in bear markets pretty much every single time. And we got that on April 2nd. And then just from a technical standpoint, if you look at what the NASDAQ, what the S&P 500 have done, we've set technically higher lows. So if you look back right around that follow through day, April 21st to be exact, was kind of this low. And then we get the follow through day the next day. And then we put in another kind of swing low. We started last week a little bit softer. We pulled back a little bit. So around that May 7th date was another low point for the market. And you can see that those low points are getting higher. And then you also see that the highs, as the market makes a push, these highs are also getting higher. So you look at May 2nd, for example, what we're seeing today, we're seeing this price action, right? So this is detached from the news and the headlines. This is what the actual money is doing.
The big money.
The institutional money is flowing back. We're in an uptrend again, at least short term, on the S&P and the NASDAQ. And those are the two major indexes that we watch. So if you look at those, we've had that follow through day, April 22nd. We've been talking about watch for this, right? Preston, you were screaming about that all through April, the beginning of April, even the end of March. Watch for this follow through day, watch for the follow through day.
I said it almost every day. I got sick of saying it.
So that hit April 22nd, and we've been building back into some positions. And then look at what today brought. The chart of the S&P 500, you can see we've cleared the 100-day moving average, the 200-day moving average. So as we've continued, and we cleared resistance levels, I'm looking at this chart back on March 25th or so, that high, the swing highs that we saw towards the end of March, we're just clearing all of these different levels. So the market is just continuing. So you can see those higher lows, those higher highs. You can see us clearing those moving averages. You can see us clearing that level back towards the end of March. And so hopefully, if you didn't start building into your positions a week or two ago, you start feeling a little more comfortable and confident doing that. So Preston, I want to have you talk about one thing real quick, because this is something you've helped me with quite a bit. When I see the S&P 500, for example, it's covered almost 1,000 points from its low back in, April 7th or so. It's covered almost 1,000 points. And sometimes for me, I get a little hesitant to buy in when I see it covering that much ground in a month's time, really. So what's that saying you always like to say? You never know. I won't steal your thunder.
What, how high they can go, and you never know how low they can go.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so maybe you could speak to that, right? Because some technical traders might feel like they've missed the move, or oh darn it, the S&P's covered 1,000 points. Maybe I need to wait. What would you say to someone that might be in that mode of thinking?
Well, look, I mean, we're planning to do these fog cutters every month. Pardon me, every start of the week, every Monday month. They both start with MO. And so and that's a weekly pace, and it's always interesting to see how a 1 week will unfold. It's way easier when we step back and then we look at the market history from World War II. That we average one of these corrections a year. And then the fact that corrections do end, actually. You never think they're going to end while they're doing these drops that are just taking everyone's breath away. This one is very severe and very quick. So that said, you back up from it, it's a lot easier to see. So if you're asking me in the short term, I mean, it'll be interesting how a week like this unfolds, because we know there's going to be news of, well, maybe it's not 90 days now, maybe it's 30. There's going to be some clouds, and there's
Totally.
going to be profit taking. I mean, there might be a lot of short covering going on as well today, where the money that was short, you make money when you short as something goes down. Well, as it starts recovering like this, you're not making money anymore as a short, so you're panicking to get out. And how do you get out of a short? You're a buyer.
Right.
So other people are buying because, oh, it might be safe to get in. The short money is buying to get out because they're not making as much money anymore. It's such a weird, interesting dynamic.
Totally.
So to answer your question, we just don't know if this will hold this week. So it's kind of hard to buy on a day like today for shorter term strategies, but I sure like the look of it long term. I mean,
Absolutely. And my 2 cents on that is you can start picking a few positions up here or there. Start with a half a position size. And if we do go into a week of profit taking, okay, maybe you have 1 week that doesn't go great, but then you could add the other half of the position on a pullback. So I always would recommend to people start taking some nibbles, right? If you didn't get in a couple weeks ago as we started adding some more positions, that's okay. Again, like Preston said, long term, it's looking great. And Preston, you said something last week as you were walking by the office that just kind of rattled me. You're like, we're only like 7% away from all-time highs. And then you look at that today and it's probably what
yeah,
percent now?
5.
6%. So we've covered a lot of ground. We're clearing a lot of these technical levels. So yeah, we've been adding some positions. Start looking to take some nibbles. Again, as we wrap this up, we like to look for leaders. A couple that I was peeking at this morning. C is the ticker symbol, C Limited. I've been in this one for a while. It was back up to its 52-week high last week, and it's cooled off just a little bit these last couple of days. But this one's been a leader. It's almost like shrugged off this correction. The tariffs
Look at that.
is PLTR, right? This is one that's just been talked about in the news a lot, but you can see it came right up. So I'm watching these closely. If we can clear some of those levels, these could be great ones to look at and take advantage of. And then throw Netflix on the screen here as well. And I wanted to this Netflix has been this leader. It was kind of a safe haven for, and Netflix isn't impacted by tariffs. You're streaming video. And so this one, money was just flowing into it, and it's down on a day like today because I think money's starting to move back into the Apples, the Amazons, where they're starting to feel some of that relief. So Netflix might be giving us a gift here of a great little pullback setup, but you're starting to see money flow and move back into some of these stocks that have just been beaten down due to the China US tariff situation, like Apple, like Amazon,
Mhm.
which are just getting that gasp of air today. So
No, it's
definitely,
interesting you say that. And one maybe to add to that, that's something to consider, not to do like standalone, but you just notice that when money's just feeling a lot more sure, a lot more clear, and markets hate uncertainty. There's some sudden certainty today. So money's chasing and hitting the apples and hitting these chip stocks, hitting a lot. But I noticed like a McDonald's is lower today, but McDonald's was more of a safe haven
exactly.
when the technology stocks were a little more uncertain. Well, hey, let's go to something that's a little more sure. So, this has an overall uptrend too, but not participating today. But believe me, when there's a little more uncertainty, oh, maybe the tariffs aren't as good as we thought or whatever, there'll be money coming back to McDonald's. So it's
Absolutely.
always fun in your portfolio, to not have everything that's biotech, to not have everything that's cybersecurity, but to have pieces here and there, including like a McDonald's, where they're not all going to act the same every day, meaning that's a good thing.
Absolutely. Well, hey, I just saw my Uber pull up. I'm about to head to the airport in a few minutes. So, just kind of some parting thoughts. First thing, remember, sometimes the seas might feel like they're getting a little calmer, but man, some of this news can hit. Storms can brew unexpectedly, like Preston spoke to. I don't. There's going to be some headwinds as we climb out of this. So stay on top of your trades. Make sure you're always trading with your put protection. If you're trading our money press strategy, that's always going to be built in there. Preston, you and I, if we own shares of stock, we almost always have put protection underneath it just for when that storm might hit. And then the second thing I wanted to say as we sign off, did you see the opening NFL game they just announced
No,
this
no.
morning? So if you're new to Preston, he's a longtime Cowboys fan.
Don't hold it against me.
And it's September 4th, that Thursday night, NFL kickoff, Cowboys at the Eagles. They just announced it this morning. I felt like we had to chat about that in the sign off.
I've done that Eagle game there. Eagle fans, you're crazy in a bad way.
So that'll be a fun one.
Yeah.
But anything else, Preston? We sign this one off?
No, I thought we covered some good ground, Mike. Appreciate you doing that and
Absolutely.
on your travel day.
No worries. I'm excited. I know you got a busy day ahead as well. So thanks, everyone. We're excited. In some of these future FogCutter lives, we want to take some questions and maybe have some questions from the week before so we can address some of the things that might be on top of your mind. But we're excited to get this rolling. Preston, awesome insight like always. Love tapping into your just decades and decades of trading experience and knowledge. Even I learn stuff constantly from you. So appreciate all you do.
I learned
And
from you too.
we'll see everyone next week.
All right, we're excited for these. We're excited already for next Monday.
Okay, take care.